Our God, our Father, we're blessed again to have the opportunity to ask that you would guide and direct the deliberations for tonight. Again, grateful for these men and women, God, who have dedicated themselves to making this a city, God, that we appreciate and enjoy so very much. We pray that you would bless their conversation, their deliberations, their decisions. And we pray that we as a community would continue to support and enjoy all the amenities, God, that we have in this wonderful place. And so we would pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Mark Norton, could you lead the pledge?
Sure. Hand over the heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz.
Here.
Councilmember Green.
Here.
Councilmember Haggerty. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Warren. Here. And Mayor Bonner.
Here. Okay, I'd like to have approval to approve a motion to approve the city council agenda.
Motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, we're going to have a presentation first by Jennifer Ward. I guess it doesn't look like Rick Bishop.
Nope, sorry, you get the B team this evening. Thank you, Mayor Bonner, honorable members of the City Council, and guests. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. My name's Jennifer Ward. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Western Riverside Council of Governments, or WRCOG. And yes, my director, Rick Bishop, sends his regrets. Unfortunately, he really wanted to be here this evening, but he had an appointment he couldn't get out of in Orange County. So I'll be here just to give you a real quick update on the activities WRCOG is currently working on. We have great representation from the city, from Councilman Aaron Krantz. He has to listen to us every month, so and does a great job representing the city, but we wanted to come share just some information of what we have going on. So, and you do have copies of this PowerPoint in front of you if you want to refer to the paperwork as well, and I'd be happy to send it out afterwards. As you know, our subregion encompasses Western Riverside County. We've had 17 cities as members of Western Riverside COG. We did just add the city of Belmont back as a member of WRCOG. We settled our many years long lawsuit with them. So they are now officially a member of the COG again and get to go back on the map. But just to put it into context, you know, what you see on this previous map are all of the jurisdictional boundaries, the water district boundaries that WRCOG includes. We have the Morongo Band of Mission Indians, the county superintendent of schools, the education representative that represents all Riverside County. But when you kind of take our subregion and you put it into context, in the greater sort of Southern California region, you know, you have the ports of LA and Long Beach to the south, all the way up to the mountains. What you don't see in this context, where Riverside County is to the far east, is jurisdictional boundaries. So a lot of the issues, you know, we always like to show this bird's eye view of our Southern California region, because many of the issues that WRCOG and councils of governments in general try to address are things like transportation and traffic, or goods movement flowing from the ports through our region here in Western Riverside County, air quality issues, water flow. All of these issues don't pay attention to jurisdictional boundaries, of course. Another issue that doesn't necessarily stay confined within our city boundaries is growth. And population growth is still going to occur everywhere in Western Riverside County. You know, maybe Canyon Lake itself is not going to see a huge spike in population, but the region will. I mean, you know, whether you agree with the numbers or not, even your neighbor, Lake Elsinore, is projected to grow by a staggering amount over the next 20 to 30 years. So these numbers in particular happen to come from the Southern California Association of Governments, but really whatever kind of data source you go to, projections you look at, there is a lot of people that are still planning to move to inland Southern California, and our population is going to grow. And so that just kind of reinforces the need to be proactively addressing traffic and water quality and air quality, and providing economic development opportunities. With this population growth, we expect job growth and business business growth. So are we as a region making our place an attractive location for those businesses to also want to raise their families, and hopefully those future employees and employers will want to continue living in this subregion as well. So that there are many agencies that already have a specific purpose to address those issues, like water districts and RCTC. Many of you sit on these boards. The unique thing about councils of governments is we don't have a defined purpose. We're not set in stone to provide energy to constituents. We're not set in stone to, address water quality issues or provide transportation infrastructure. COGS don't have a defined charge, which, if Rick were here, he'd tell you that's really scary, because when he first started this job, he expected to have a list of assignments and sort of a charge. This is what you're supposed to do as the director of a COG. And his first day on the job, it was like, there's no assignments. You can do whatever you want. And so, in a way, it's very unsettling at times, but it also gives us a huge advantage because we are really here to serve our member jurisdictions. So whatever the needs of our members are, whether it's with water quality issues or providing recreational opportunities or education, or providing workforce development opportunities, whatever those issues that our members are experiencing and that we project to see increased, that's where a council of governments kind of comes in and can fill that niche in the subregion to really take on projects or come up with unique ways to address those issues. So I'm just going to give a couple examples of what we're doing. That flexibility has resulted in WRCOG taking on a number of different issues related to economic development. And I know economic development is really the number one priority for our region, continuing to recover from the recession and also just make our region an attractive place for businesses to want to come here despite all the challenges of having a business in California. So we work really hard with our members, again, to recognize that economic development won't occur if our region is not, a desirable place to live or have good school districts. So that's why we kind of address some of these issues. Just to give you a snapshot, you also have a handout. I don't have it detailed on the slide because it's a lot of information, but you do have a handout. One of our example programs to kind of address that economic development and energy efficiency issue is our HERO program. Many of you, I'm sure, have heard about that. The HERO program has been around for about 5 years now, and it provides financing for homeowners or business owners who want to upgrade their properties with energy efficiency, water efficient, or solar, new HVAC system. There's thousands of products that are available to finance through this program, and we have just a snapshot specific to Canyon Lake, all of the number of residents who have used this financing and kind of the different types of projects they've financed through HERO. We also try to show through this, by people using this financing and making their homes or businesses more energy efficient, it does help them save money, and that money savings they experience has a direct result on kind of eventually going back into the economy, whether it's more disposable income. And so those kind of economic stimulus numbers you see are derived from sort of that line of thinking. So when you take a look just at Canyon Lake, the improvements are really impressive. And then when you multiply that across the whole region, we've seen huge success with this program. We've also, seen challenges. I know you as leaders in your community often get calls from residents who weren't satisfied with their project, weren't satisfied with their contractor, or from realtors who try to sell a property that has this program assessment attached to it and find out at the last minute, and it somehow, throws a wrench in their deal. And so those are definitely really, really important issues that we are dealing with. We've established a realtor-specific coalition, a working group. We work with them on a monthly basis to just continually educate about this program, about how you sell a house with the HERO loan on it, or how you do a refinance. And so we do have a much better relationship with the realtors than when we first started this program, because it was really new and foreign to them. And then on the contractor side, we've launched a ton of consumer protection policies since this program started. We have tons of disclosures through the program, just trying to educate residents and the contractors what they're getting themselves into before they sign up. And actually just this last month, we have implemented a new customer call center. So now every time anyone signs up for the HERO program, they receive 2 phone calls. One, right when they sign up, from our private partner, Renovate America, to make sure they understand all of the terms. And then they receive a second call, and we now are reaching 100% of customers. They receive a second call from WRCOG staff saying, we just want to make sure you understand what you're getting into. We want to make sure you know how much your assessment is going to be on a monthly basis. Just checking, if you want to cancel now, it's not too late to do that. And we have seen a number of, a number of people who have decided, oh, wow, like, thanks for explaining that to me again. I do actually want to reduce my assessment, or I don't want to do this program. We've also, as part of that second conversation with them, flag if they're a low-income individual. We'll say there's also programs available for you to get free solar. So, why would you pay us if you can get something for free? So that's just a synopsis on the HERO program. I know that's one of our big programs, so if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those now. All right. So as I mentioned before, Councilman Aaron Kranz is our executive committee. We have a whole lineup of committees that serve our executive committee. We vet everything, regardless of whether or not staff are present at the committees. We vet everything WRCOG is doing through all staff levels at your city, whether it's through Public Works or planning, the city manager's office. We really want to make sure any new program WRCOG launches has been discussed and considered by the staff, because you're the ones who ultimately will be the beneficiaries of this program. One that I'll particularly highlight before I conclude is our Beyond program. Due in part because of the successful expansion of HERO statewide, there's been some additional revenues that WRCOG has experienced because that program does generate revenue, and the program grew much more rapidly than we expected. So over the last 2 years, we provided about $4 million back out to our member jurisdictions to help implement projects at your jurisdiction. WRCOG, primarily what we work on is planning for the future and trying to address all those big issues I was talking about earlier, and that a lot of times results in us doing studies or working with our jurisdictions to come up with a plan for something. But ultimately, it's up to our members if those plans get implemented. And of course, the number one challenge is funding. It sounds like a great plan, but where's the money to implement it? So we wanted to provide that direct source of income back to the cities. To maybe you have an idea that's been sitting around for a while and you just didn't have that little piece of funding to get it going. So in Canyon Lake specifically, over the last 2 rounds, we've provided $76,000. So not a huge amount, obviously, but you can get some tangible, smaller projects accomplished. And the city's used that funding thus far for some water monitoring at your lake, some economic development improvements with signage and mobility improvements along Railroad Canyon, as well as Goats Road. And finally, we'll have some that are, some funding will be going to an update of the city website. So that's another just economic development improvement for you as a city. When a business or a potential visitor or resident goes to the city, we'll be able to use some upgrades for that. Lastly, we have an active transportation program that is focusing on some walking and biking opportunities for our region. And our newest program is the Community Choice Aggregation. And this is a program where WRCOG would actually step in as the energy provider for residents who are currently Edison customers in the region. So this type of program is allowed all across California. There's been multiple other jurisdictions who have done this in California. Edison, of course, will remain as the infrastructure piece of this equation. We're not about to go out and build new power lines or power plants or anything like that, but because WRCOG is a smaller entity, Edison is such a large monopoly, they have long-term energy contracts. We can kind of come in and secure that same source of energy at a cheaper rate and provide that cheaper rate to your residents by a partnership with Edison. So they still have the infrastructure actually transmitting the power to your residents. We just come in with more affordable contracts, which results in cheaper rates for your customers. So this program is actually, we've been talking about it a lot over the last year, and our executive committee is going to be voting to essentially move the program forward on Monday, August 7th. And once that rolls out in your communities, it's actually, the way the CCA or Community Choice Aggregation is set up is that anyone who's currently an Edison customer is automatically enrolled in the CCA. They have to choose if they don't want to be part of it, if they want to just stick with their same Edison rate they've always paid. So that will be a big education piece, and we're really taking that seriously. There's going to be a lot of education to residents and to community leaders, of course, to make sure that people understand, well, why am I have this new energy rate that no one told me about? That's the last thing we want to happen. So we're really excited about this. Like I said, we'll be able to offer cheaper rates for energy, and that's always good. So that is the last project I wanted to provide an update on, but we really just thank you for your participation in WRCOG, and I know a couple of you were able to make it out to our General Assembly, which we were super excited to have Dr. Robert Gates, and that's always a great celebration of this region and all the work that you as community leaders do to make Canyon Lake and Western Riverside County a better place. So thanks again for your support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on WRCOG.
Yeah, Jennifer, where we have Railroad Canyon Road today is because of WRCOG and the TUMP money.
Of course.
Now, the council needs to help me, or Aaron, there was a discussion last month about some road work that need to be done, and we want to know if we could use TUMP money. Do you know what I'm, slippery, or, I can't remember what the word.
Right, it's the slurry seal. So
Yeah.
we're at the 5-year mark to do the treatment, so that's been budgeted for next year. And so, yeah, we're looking at all options to offset any general fund money we're putting out. Most of it we're using what we're getting back, Measure A funds, things like that,
Okay.
gas tax.
So Jennifer, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but something we might want to ask you if there's any possibilities. We can work together on that.
Certainly, that's definitely something we can discuss. Don't tell my boss I didn't even mention the TUMP program in this presentation yet, but no, that is, of course, obviously one of our major transportation funding programs, and you might have heard recently we did a big update of the TUMP program. We approved a new Nexus study, which outlines a lot of the projects we hope to fund in the coming years, but those projects that get funded through TUMP get revisited on a regular basis, both at the technical committee with your public works and also at the elected level. So that's always a conversation we're happy to have. As part of that update, we also did approve a fee increase in all types of land uses, residential, retail, commercial, and office space. And so developers in the region have been obviously very vocal, and because of that long process, we approved those fee increases to take place, first of all, to be frozen for 2 years at the retail level, so retail won't see any impact in their fees for at least 2 years, and then that will be rolled out on a 2-year phase-in. And actually, starting now, we approved a little bit of a decrease in the retail fee starting now, and then 2 years later, we'll start ramping it up into an increased fee, so.
Any questions? Anybody else?
Excuse me. No, I just wanted to thank Jennifer for her presentation, and especially for the monuments that we have out there. Everybody knows where the city limits are of Canyon Lake
Yeah, it
now.
looks beautiful. I saw it on my
Thanks to the grant that you and Mike was able to work on to obtain for us.
Yes.
And also, you've done me a big favor. You've given my report for tonight for WRCOG, so saved a lot of time.
Just saved us 3 minutes.
There you go.
So thank you for that, and thanks for showing up.
Of course, my pleasure. Did you have a question?
I was just, on the Beyond program,
Certainly.
one of the funds allocated was for lake water monitoring. I thought Lejewa was doing our water monitoring. What's the difference in what your money went towards and what Lejewa does?
Sure. So I'll provide an answer, and certainly if staff who are here want to correct me if I'm wrong or provide more of an answer. And the program, the way we structured Beyond is that the funding is really flexible. So if there is an existing entity or an existing program already occurring in your city, this funding can simply be used to sort of backfill that funding or just enhance it. So it could have been, I don't know the specifics again of that the exact transaction, but it could have been that it went to just further the work that was already being done. And I believe that was a relatively small piece of funding the first year. So did you want to add anything?
Thank you.
And your staff have been great to work with on the execution of that grant, so.
Basically, that project was something that was thought about from previous staff with regards to what was being expected from El Nino. But because that didn't happen the way it had planned to, we then retook that allocation and put that towards what ended up being the monuments and those other projects. So basically, that project, we didn't fulfill it just because of how things kind of turned out, but it went towards the monuments and the website, and I think one last other thing. Oh, the purchase of the buoys too as well.
Okay, yeah. Again, the nature of the funding is supposed to be flexible, so, like was said, if a project ends up not being feasible, we're happy to redivert that funding to something else.
Larry, do you guys think? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have a proclamation. Stephanie, could you please read it?
This is the Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week proclamation. Whereas the City of Canyon Lake has an interest in promoting the social and economic well-being of its citizens, employees, and employers. Whereas the well-being depends on the existence of healthy and productive employees working in a safe, abusive-free work environments. And whereas research has documented that stress-related health consequences for individuals caused by exposure to abusive work environments, and whereas abusive work environments are costly for employers with consequences including reduced productivity, absenteeism, and injuries, whereas protection from the abusive work environment should apply to every worker and not be limited to legally protected class status based on race, color, gender, national origin, age, or disability. Therefore, be it proclaimed on behalf of the City Council of the City of Canyon Lake, they do hereby proclaim October 15th through the 21st, 2017 as Freedom from the Workplace Bullies Week, and commended the California Healthy Workplace Advocates and the Workplace Bullying Institute, which raises awareness of the impacts and solutions for workplace bullying in the U.S. and encourages all citizens to recognize the special observance.
Okay, so there's nobody to pick up. Are you going to mail it?
No, this will get mailed to the California Healthiest Workplace Advocates. Then they advertise it on their website and promote it.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, Chamber of Commerce announcements. Our president, Jim Randall's not here. Jordan, did you want to say anything relative to the chamber?
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to make any announcement for the chamber.
But I didn't tell you ahead of time. I'm sorry. All right. All right, public comments. Stephanie, you want to read the public comment statement?
Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city, whether or not it appear on this agenda, is asked to complete a speaker request form. Available on the back counter, the completed form is to be submitted to the city clerk prior to the individual being heard by the City Council. City Council has adopted a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you are commenting on an agenda item, your comments will be heard at the time that particular item is scheduled on the agenda. Please note, if you are addressing the City Council items not on the agenda, the Brown Act does not allow any discussion of such items. Therefore, the council may only do the following: refer the matter to staff, ask for additional information, or request a report back or give very limited factual response. At this time, I don't have any speaker request cards.
Okay, then let's go to the consent calendar. Stephanie, you want to read this consent calendar statement? Hmm?
It's on the consent calendar. If it's on the consent calendar.
It's not the pub, okay. All right, let's get the, Stephanie, you said that's specific about.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion with the concurrence of the City Council. Council member may request that an item be removed for further discussion. Staff recommends approval of all items.
Okay,
Jack is wishing to speak on a couple items that are on the consent calendar.
well,
The council would have to pull the item for him to discuss it, wouldn't they?
well, we should first, if someone wants to pull one, right?
I do.
You want
I have some that I'd like to pull, yes.
to? Okay.
Are we at that point now?
Sure.
Behind the pole.
Okay, under 7.2, I don't know necessarily whether these checks need to be pulled, but I would like to discuss them. Check number 23250, 23216, 23185, and check number 23252, I have to recuse myself on that check. And also under 7.4, I think I already, no, I believe I already talked about those. 7.4, I just have a question. And 7.8, I have a question. And that'll get me through the consent calendar.
Okay. And I have to tell you, you did a little too fast for the numbers.
I'm sorry.
We can come back to it, the numbers. Huh? Can you write it down on a piece of paper and give it to me, please?
Here, I got it. 23250, 23252, 23216, and 23185.
Okay, so at this point, we'll have pulled 7.2 and for further discussion. And you have a question on 7.4 and you have a question on 7.8.
Correct.
So you want to pull them at this point and come back to them?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, any other council member? I'm sorry?
Need to pull 7.6 as well.
Who says that?
Jack's asking to speak on that item.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anything else? So let me see, I got this right now. So right now, the approval would be 7.1, 7.3, 7.5, and 7.7. Is there a motion to pass those?
Second.
You want to, let's see, there's money involved, better do a recall.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Haggerty. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Warren. Yes. And Mayor Bonner.
Yes.
Motion approved with items 7.2, 7.4, and 7.6 pulled.
Okay, Jordan, why don't you take the lead and,
Okay, these are just questions, first of all. 23250 and 23216 and 23185 all concern Amber Air Conditioning doing some repairs for us. And I ask this question quite often. Why do we not use Canyon Lake contractors, not somebody from Elsinore? With all due respect to Amber Air Conditioning. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but we have several air conditioning contractors here in Canyon Lake. I'm sure they would be willing to do the work.
I believe we have done, in the past, have done work with Amber Air when things came up with the fire station to get these repaired done along with City Hall. I just went by what we had used before in the past. But I do understand that we should be looking more at our local vendors, but at the time, I just went with what we currently had on file.
Well, please don't misunderstand. I mean, the fact that I was an air conditioning contractor has nothing to do with any choices here. I would just always like to see work done.
Yes.
If Amber was the only one that responded, I can understand that. But there are others here who I'm sure could do the job just as well. And you've used others in the past. So that was my concern about that.
We'll make sure that from here on, we'll look at the local vendors first.
So that's 3 of the 4, right?
Right, the other check, 23252, is a check to the Chamber of Commerce, and I've been advised, as you know, in the past, to not vote on anything in regards to the
I believe
Chamber. Is that
252,
correct?
Chamber check is 23253.
Oh, my mistake, okay.
It was the Animal Friends of the Valley that you read, 23216, I believe.
I did say that, but
That's Animal Friends.
that's my error.
So did we answer your questions?
Well, yes, you have. Also, there was on 7.4,
Okay.
it's not the check necessarily, it's a question on master line plumbing, same thing. I didn't even see any competitive bids on that, and we also have plumbers ready and willing here in Canyon Lake to do work.
I'm responding for Margaret, who's had some medical issues and not being able to hear tonight. But I do know that we went out to bid, and Masterline Plumbing, I believe, was the competitive low bidder for that project. And we did reach out to local contractors for the bid process.
But none of the local contractors bid on the job.
That's my understanding.
So
Yeah.
did you in fact reach out to them?
Yes,
I don't mean to question you in that tone of voice, but,
no, I understand.
I would have thought that local contractors would have been happy to work on the fire station.
I don't know. I don't know what this, why they wouldn't or didn't. Sometimes it's the prevailing wage issues or whatever that might cause that kind of a thing.
exactly that. It's the prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage and bonding.
Contractors do not pay prevailing wages.
Pardon me?
Some of these contractors do not pay for prevailing wages is for government contracts.
Well,
So that's part of the-
they may not in their daily jobs, but they're required to do so when they bid on a job. The prevailing wage is just merely union wages without any benefits. I'm not speaking for the plumbers. I'm just curious as to why they wouldn't have bid on the job.
It has to do with prevailing wages.
Was that their response?
Yes, I believe Ken can answer that too.
And Jordan, this did come before the admin finance because of the timeline that we were looking at. And the other thing that was discussed was a lot of the locals did not, this was according to Margaret, the bonding issues and some other things, all the paperwork that kind of has to go with our type of work, most of them did not want to comply with that. That's why we ended up with the contractor, who happened to be the lowest of the bids that did come in.
We have Mr. Bailey here tonight, who was actually, I didn't realize he was actually part of the bid process and can answer those more specifically.
Okay, well, I understand that. The only work I ever did was public works prevailing wage, so I understand that part of it. If our contractors aren't qualified, then that's certainly an acceptable reason to me as well.
Right, so the Department of Industrial Relations requires any time we use public funds of $1,000 or more.
You got to speak a little more into the microphone, please.
So the Department of Industrial Relations requires,
Into the mic.
nice. Okay, better. Okay, so the Department of Industrial Relations requires contractors to be registered with the department if we're using public funds $1,000 or more. So there's actually a list online that with the department, and there's only about 9 to 10 contractors from the city of Canyon Lake that are registered with the Department of Industrial Relations. So if they're not registered, they're not eligible. To be registered, that ensures that the public funds, we're paying fair prevailing wages. So,
I say,
And-
I understand it.
and so the contractors that were applicable to those jobs were contacted, but there's no response.
So we didn't have any qualified contractors here?
Correct.
Well, then that's shame on us then. Okay, well, thank you for the explanation.
Wait, shame on us or shame on them?
Shame on them.
Well, shame on them. Them is us.
I mean, we tried to get them to bid.
If indeed we did, then I understand. And I'm not questioning that you didn't. But as I say, then that's something that I'm going to look into. Thank you.
So Jack, did you want to talk about 7.4?
I guess the thing that I wanted to ask is the contract that the city's paying for. Originally, all that maintenance was supposed to be taken care of by the POA. It's their building, not the city's.
No, Jack, that is not true.
No, that's not
It's
correct.
$1. They lease it $1, and all the maintenance is the city responsibility of that building, unless they use it for another purpose. If the fire station wouldn't have been reopened and they used it for another purpose, then yes, they would be responsibility. But under the fire station building, as long as it's used as a fire station, it's the city responsibility to do the maintenance.
Well, the POA, I know, has paid bills in the past.
Well,
When they first started, the reason that we got that is the POA built the building in order to get the fire department in there. There was no need for the fire department to move into Canyon Lake, period, when they built the place. They built the building in order to get the fire department in there, and at that time, we were doing a lot of the, paying for a lot of the maintenance type things.
well,
And-
Jack, I can't tell you exactly what had happened, but when I was the POA president and the treasurer, at that time, it was the city of responsibility on the maintenance of that building. I don't know when the transition was made.
Well, evidently, they've
It's
been.
over 15 years ago that it was.
They what?
The contract was rewritten, or that was included, that the city would be responsible. It's at least 10 years, maybe 15 years ago.
Well, that would be about right, I guess, as far, if they made the change.
Yeah.
I know when I was on the board, and they definitely, the POA paid the bill. And so, if that's the agreement, that's the agreement, so nothing you can do about that.
Okay, so 7.4, I think we answered those.
I had some check questions.
Oh. You didn't pull it. Tia, go ahead. You want to go back and ask it now?
Well, I thought it was pulled. I thought we pulled the 7.2.
But only certain checks. But we can do more.
Okay, well, actually, I just want to, it's more conversational because I had so many questions that I just sent an email to Larry.
Yeah, thank you.
And asked, I think I copied you on it, and asked a lot of questions to save time here. And just a couple of things that people in the audience, if they read this, might question. I think it might be good for Larry maybe to discuss the, what were there were a couple of things we talked about that, the misprinting on that 18,000 for the Animal Friends of the Valley. You know, the way that money was not shown allocated correctly. So it looks like we paid 18,000 something for the Animal Friends of the Valley, but it wasn't. I also had questioned, because when I was, years ago, when I was on the board, I questioned the cost for blood draws. And I'm sorry, it was when I first got on city council, wasn't on the board. And apparently it was never resolved. It was my understanding that any DUIs, if in court they were found guilty, that there was a fine, and that part of that fine would go back to reimburse the city for the cost of the blood draw. And that has not happened. So I asked Larry about it, and I guess Lieutenant Q's looking into it, and we'll find out if there's any way that we are
If
gonna
I
get
may,
some money back.
Lieutenant Q did bring up several good points about that, in that once it comes out of the law enforcement realm, gets into the courts, it's up to the courts to set the fines, how much those fines are. So it is not clear everybody thinks that all the costs that are incurred, except for property damage, excuse me, would come back to us, and that is not the case. And he is looking to see if there's any other ways of recovering those. But that's the only way that we can move the law enforcement side forward. Without those blood tests, we don't have a case.
Yeah, because it was about $1,000, and it's about that much every month, so
Well,
it seems like we should
It
get.
fluctuates. Sometimes it's not more than a couple of blood draws. That last particular month, we had a lot of obviously,
Well, there
which
was
showed up.
$886
Right,
worth.
okay, that's about 1,000, but if you look at our norm, we usually have about, it runs between $48 and $68, depending on the particular lab, because I've been watching that over the months. So it does vary on the number of folks they arrest, so.
And Larry, if I remember correctly, because I'm also on the Finance Committee, the Valley of Animals, there's a monthly charge of $3,500.
Yeah.
But there's a service charge depending on how many animals
Yeah.
are brought forward from the citizens and the costs associated with that.
That's what you're talking about, that 10,000 is actually a quarterly fee for the shelter. That is a contractual fee for Riverside County. A monthly fee goes to the animal folks, which is 35. We are trying to work on our coding on our printout here, which they've got very limited space so that the characters that we use give a little better definition, because sometimes it says one thing and really has a kind of a double meaning. So anyway, we have looked at all the different points that Councilman Haggerty has brought forth and asked the appropriate questions. I've also asked for a trend study done on several of our larger contractual fees that we'll have brought back to us within the next month or so.
And I had another issue.
Go ahead, please.
When I saw how much the Riverside County Sheriff charged us for Fiesta Days and the 4th of July, it was $96, $93, $77 for the 4th, and $62.57 for Fiesta Days. And during my tenure on the POA board, we discussed those huge costs for those two special holidays, and it was determined that we could get volunteers to do a lot of the traffic direction and putting the cones out, and a lot of things that at that time the police were doing, and we're paying them time and a half to do stuff that we had volunteers that could do. So I didn't know if that was, and I asked how, was this our cost or was this the total cost that the POA had not paid half for?
No.
I was informed that this is just our cost. The POA apparently had an equal cost. But I would like to ask for a copy of the staff and the hours to see if there's, what their job was, to see if there is any way we can cut that cost down by getting volunteer labor from, Securitas or, well, whatever it's going to be, or from volunteers, retired policemen and so forth that could do this kind of thing and save us a huge amount of money.
Don, there's only so many things you can do to save money. And Fiesta Day and 4th of July, historically, I've lived here 21 years. Until the last 3 or 4 years, we always had incidents. And about 3-4 years ago, the POA and the city got together and shared more presents. And since then, and this year, on both the Fiesta Day and 4th of July, we didn't have any big issues. So there's a cost
I'm not talking
safety.
about that. I'm not talking about those issues. I think that's where we do need the police, and they do need to be visible, because we do have an significantly increased problem. I've lived here 23 years, so I can remember, there were several issues at a couple of the parks with nudity and sex right out on the beach and all kinds of horrible things during those holidays. And that, I don't think we have the problem anymore. What I'm talking about, is there any of the things that they're doing that could be done by volunteer retired police that could save us some money? And there's only so much you can save money on, but when you're talking about $15,000, $20,000 for 2 holidays, I think it's worth looking at.
It's always worth looking at it, but I can tell you, because I attend both of those functions, and the law enforcement folks aren't providing direction on traveling down the roads. There's other people that's got a vest on, it's do the moving the traffic along. So it's not coming from people that are wear law enforcement uniforms.
I drive from San Joaquin, where I go to my daughter's to watch the fireworks, and I see policemen directing traffic every year. So they may not be in a particular spot where you're talking about where the Fiesta Days, the Fiesta Day committee right there by the lodge handles the traffic. And that, I don't know. That's why I'd like to see a list of the staff and their assignments and the hours that they spent, and see if there's anything that we can do to cut those costs.
Q, do you want to make any comments?
Lieutenant Q, could you come forth and explain what you explained to us at the admin of the reasons we've got to where we are, the philosophy of what you're doing as far as the proactive policing to keep Fiesta Days and the 4th in control?
First off, I welcome the opportunity to discuss what we've been doing over the last several years. It started with the trend of me being assigned to the contract City of Canyon Lake in October of 2013. The prior year, another lieutenant at the parish station was in charge of the contract, and lo and behold, he gets into a full-blown fight at one of our beaches here on Fiesta Days. The point being from that, it was a lieutenant at the time. As you can tell, I can get into it or not, but I'm a little older now. So picture him being a little bit older and calling for everybody and their mother to come help him out. A lot of resources came from Elsinore, Menifee, Paris, any county personnel, because when a lieutenant calls for assistance, it's not just your average day. From that point on, I had hard conversations the next year when I talked to the POA in the city and said, well, we're not going to repeat that, one. And two, what's the best way to deploy this? So as I was talking in our public safety meeting, every year we always reevaluate what we're doing. One of the biggest things is this. The first year, Fiesta Day is setting the tone for the season, for the entire lake, as to what direction we're going. I even talk on the side note without even the city being involved with the POA to say, okay, you got your concert series. This is what we suggest. This is something that you got to make sure that your residents are willing to come to these concerts. So in the first year, we were very successful. We had very minimal issues. So we set the tone from that. Every year since then, we'd sit down with the POA and the city and say, hey, how are we doing on here? We had issues at the campground. We had issues here. How do we mitigate that? The staffing is documented well in the operations packet that is conducted. We delineate 2 officers here. The reason being is, if you guys remember 4th of July, this is my first 4th of July, you guys were impacted probably about 20 minutes from the lodge just to get out. People walking. I had 2 guys inside. They put it over the radio. I'm listening. We are not going to be able to respond, the 2 of them, from the inside of the lodge. Everybody else is on their own on the outside. I did have a discussion with the POA, and we try to see how we can mitigate the traffic flow a little better, so we came up with some ideals. So every year, if there's an opportunity to decrease staff, I decrease it. However, traditionally, your 4th of July is not going to be fully staffed. We put out what we want. It's just a hard event to get personnel. What we did, and I think I like to change this year, instead of having a deputy that couldn't, I had 2 or 3 deputy spots that weren't able to get filled. No one could come in because we go department-wide if anybody wants to work it. We brought in a community service officer, the ones that take anyone to jail. We had 3 or 4 arrests for public intoxication. That helped out really good because the non-sworn went away, but your law enforcement presence was here. I welcome the fact, if you'd like to see how our deployment is, it's no hidden secret on my end. My overall goal, and this is the intention that I have, is to ensure the event as well as the community is safe in that regard. Your influx, you guys have 10,000 people within your city. That can swell to 15,000, it can swell to 20,000. This year, we were very fortunate. 4th of July was on a Tuesday. The prior incidents where I have to ramp up Friday, Saturday, 4th of July and Sunday, and deal with a holiday, Those is when you have a bigger swell than that Tuesday. But I am all about being fiscally sound. The reason why I am that way is because I'm the administrative lieutenant at the parish station. I have a budget. I see the numbers. I say we have to be fiscally sound from the city standpoint. When I look at your contract, when I develop it, from the contract I have to manage from the county as far as the parish station operation. There was some discussion about volunteers. You know, at one point, and I'll say this very proudly because Canyon Lake, the city of, had a very strong, healthy Explorer post. Due to financial dyers, that post had to go away. You guys shared it with Menifee. Menifee took it over. At one point, when I talked to the advisor, if anybody remembers Deputy Guilford, it was a healthy post. They were out. You could be seeing them out in patrol or with the deputies. Those kind of things I'd like to get back to. I'm going to research it because I'm in charge of the Explorer post at the station, and I'd like to see that come back. But that's where we're at. In the volunteer groups, we have to be very careful with that. If there's a volunteer group and it's some sort of issue, they get hurt or whatnot, they're covered under the disaster code for if they get hurt, whoever's employing them, they have to pay for that injury. So, and you know what it is, it escapes
It's
me
a
what-
disaster services worker, but they have to take the oath of affirmation.
Right. So then it's just not a matter of being a volunteer coming to help. But, you know, I'm all about trying to fiscally be sound with the city as well as
And I
how we
think you,
deploy.
I think you said next year because July 4th is on a Wednesday,
Yes.
that maybe.
We're not going to do anything. We're not going to have nobody out except the residents. I think we'll save a lot of money then. I know that's on camera. We're going to have people there. Don't worry about it. But it's on Wednesday, and, you know, I will have to deal with just a Tuesday and the aftermath. But hopefully that answers everyone's questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, we got all your questions, Don?
Yeah, I think that everything else he answered, and it's not worth bringing.
Okay, then let's go to 7.6.
You want to vote on it now? Okay, Mayor, why don't you go ahead and vote on that, on 7.2, since if all the questions have been answered.
Oh, you want to do it one at a time?
Yeah, we'll do them one at a
Okay,
time.
let's, have a motion to approve 7.2. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
Roll call.
do we need roll call?
On all of
Money yet?
Councilmember Aaron Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Haggerty?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Warren? Yes. And Mayor Bonner?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0 to approve 7.2.
So Aaron, you want to do the same thing on 7.4 now?
Before, yeah, if you have, unless there's any more discussion. Yeah,
Any
we can
further
go to
discussion?
7.4.
Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Let's see. Yeah, there's money again. Roll call.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Haggerty?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Warren? And Mayor Bonner?
Yes.
Motion approved to pass item 7.4.
Okay, 7.6, approve increase to the city annual fee to Leswell from 10,000 to 20,000. It's consistent with the presentation that Mark Norton made at the last city council meeting. And so we're just, unless there's any further discussion, I guess, Jack, you want to make some comments. I think we
Jack.
should just go ahead and. Huh?
I was going to make a comment before you voted.
Okay, come on, please.
The Leisure program, I think, has been a real asset to Canyon Lake. And when we started, everybody agreed to put in $10,000 equal across the board. For almost 17 years, there has been no increase, mainly because of Mr. Mark Norton keeping expenses down. And you don't get away with anything with Mark, and I know Mark very well. And so finally, it's got to the point where expenses and so on are going to eat up Leisure. If you want Leisure to disappear, then that would be part of the program. Don't fund them. But I would wholeheartedly agree that an increase is due. 17 years is a long time before you have an increase. My house taxes were about $1,500, and they're now over $3,000. And you can't operate without keeping up with the cost. So I would hope that you would support the increase and keep Leisure solid. Thank you.
Yeah. Jack, I'm not sure, just for clarification, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, the other communities have increased it from 10,000 to 20,000, but Canyon Lake had not done that.
That's right.
And now they're asking us to get at the same level as the rest of the
Right.
communities.
They're asking you to join in.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion?
No, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the $10,000 increase.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Haggerty? Mayor Pro Tem Warren? Mayor Bonner?
Yes.
Item 7.6 approved, 5-0.
Yeah. Okay, were any other items, I'm just filling in for a moment, any other items pulled under the consent? So we're good? 7.8 was pulled? Okay. Who pulled that and who wants to speak?
I did.
All righty.
I'm just a little confused with this attachment or this letter. There, just before the last paragraph, the informational only one, it says, any electrical installations on private property must be permitted and inspected by the City of Canyon Lake Building Department. I don't remember the City of Canyon Lake ever inspecting any dock installations of any kind.
For electrical.
I know it's electrical, but there's always been electrical with docks when they were installed so correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, this is clarifying the, lack of a better term, territorial issues that the lake belongs to the Elsinore Water District, and it's a public entity, and that's their responsibility. And the city has no authority to issue permits beyond the property line of the private owner. So that this was because we've had some issues come up with people on the lake possibly, receiving some electrical current from bad electrical installations. That is permitted. Those docks are permitted through the water district, not the city. And so we would permit anything up to the property line and require that to meet the California Electric Code. But that's where the city's responsibility ends.
Well, in the preceding paragraph, first paragraph, it says the City of Canyon Lake does not issue permits for areas outside of their boundaries. Canyon Lake is owned and operated by the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District and is not under the authority of the City of Canyon Lake. It is the responsibility of the property owner to ensure that they hire a California licensed electrical contractor. I mean, all of that makes sense to me, but it sounds like double talk to me.
Jordan, can I add a little bit? Because this has come up because it's very difficult right now based on the jurisdictional issues. And we've got people putting in new docks that wanted to have reference to the electrical code, and this is becoming a big deal. The building department has actually put a very good PowerPoint presentation on this particular issue. But in order to give our...
But in the past, the POA has always issued.
The POA has no authority because here's the deal. The city has the expertise. POA does not have electrical inspectors or building inspectors. That is a government function. So in order to help our citizens, if they decide to wire their docks with the current codes, this gives them a reference of the codes that are currently in effect until the codes are going to be updated, and with the recommendation that they use a licensed contractor, and that this is information only. And that's to help our citizens because they're coming to our counter, both us and the POA, and asking, What do I do? How do I do it? And this is just to give them that information bulletin. This would be no different than if I had the NFPA standards, which is the National Fire Protection Code, and they wanted to come in and pull a standard on extinguishers. I could print it, it's a recommendation, and they could use it.
I don't have a quarrel with any of this. I'm just asking for clarification.
Okay.
You know, everybody said how long they've been here in Canyon Lake. You don't want to know how long I've been here in Canyon Lake. But,
Jordan, I've been here 40 years.
well, you don't want to know how long I've been here in Canyon Lake. But nevertheless, I just want to make sure that I understand if somebody was to ask, where is it that I tell them they need to go to get this information? There's two different sections here.
I have
Thank
to
you.
agree, it's confusing. If there's a way, as I read this, just the first line, City of Canyon Lake for private dock electrical code requirements, that to me says Canyon Lake has taken the lead. Further down, it says that Canyon Lake can't take the lead. So this needs to be reworded so that the user understands that we take out the City of Canyon Lake and then
Just say
say
for private dock,
information for.
private dock
Right.
electrical code.
I don't like the way it looks, that first two
Yeah, we
sentences.
can make that change, that's not a problem.
Yeah, so if you can take out City of Canyon Lake and just say, information on dock installation,
Yeah.
however you want to put it, but.
You want this taken off?
No, I want this taken off here. This here looks to me, this is coming out and all we're saying is, we're giving you a handy little flyer. And even make it a little friendlier, just say helpful information, start it out that way. So that it's a little bit more loose instead of, this looks to me like the City of Canyon Lake has its requirements and that's what we're saying here. The average person is going to read it that way and we don't want that.
The intent of the
Right.
document was, because there's been accusations, why isn't the city doing something? So we wanted to clarify that our responsibility is up to your property line, because people are running electrical up there and they're not getting
I
permits.
think you can do that, and I think we
Yeah.
understand why this was being done.
Okay.
I think the concern is
Just change
that,
the tone.
I think you're not addressing it the right way. I think we're addressing it in a more, I don't know, professional way, and we actually need to kind of make it loose. We're doing this as a favor to our citizens, not because we have to or because they have to do something we're telling them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can make that change.
Okay.
All right, cool, thank you.
So we'll pull this item, make the friendlier changes, and we'll bring it back in September.
Or why not, can we
Just do-
have an emotion to approve
Leave
it,
it with those changes,
but make
Okay,
the
that's fine.
changes, taking the City of
whatever the
Canyon
council's
Lake
comfortable with.
off of it?
Can I see it before it goes?
Yes. We'll what we'll do is we'll come up with a final draft, we'll send it to the council just to make sure that it hit everybody's,
So we're approving the concept.
yes.
Improving the concept,
with
and I
the
think
changes.
that's fine. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I really don't want to delay this for another
No.
month. So can we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay, now there's no expenditure of money, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. Now we're down to future events. And if you look on our City of Canyon Lake website and the Friday flyer, you'll see most of these events that show up. So we try to make that information as available to our citizens as possible. Okay, let's get to the business items. The first is 10.1, award of contract landscaping maintenance service for the City of Canyon Lake. Any discussion? You want to announce it?
Mayor and members of the council, we have Ken Bailey here, who's
Sure,
Margaret's
please.
number 2. We'll go over the bidding process and what happened.
Please.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Kenneth Bailey, an Assistant Engineer with the Public Works Department. As Aaron said, I'm filling in for Margaret Monson tonight. So I'm presenting a recommendation to award staff report for the landscape maintenance services for the City of Canyon Lake. So staff recommends that City Council award and authorize the city manager to execute a contract, and that the city manager or his designee to administer the items of the contract to the lowest responsible bidder with Charles T. Andrews Incorporated, CTAI Pacific Greenscape, in the not-to-exceed amount of $63,000 for providing landscape maintenance services. So to give background, July of 2017, a request for bids for landscape maintenance services on Railroad Canyon Road was electronically advertised. local contractors were invited to bid via the city website and also through an advertisement in the Friday Flyer. So a mandatory pre-bid meeting was held and 5 contractors attended. On July 20th, 2017, 1 bid was received and opened from CTAI Pacific Greenscape. That was for $63,000. Now, in the staff report, we have a table prepared, and it shows how the $63,000 is broken down. $5,000 a month is for landscape services along Railroad Canyon Road right-of-way, the slopes and the medians. And at the end of the year, that's $60,000. And for $250, they're proposing landscape services at the fire station monthly. And that's a total of $3,000 a year. So that's altogether $63,000. So CTAI Pacific Greenscape has been the city's landscape maintenance provider for the previous 2 years and performed their duties satisfactorily, repairing irrigation systems and the lighting system, as well as maintaining the planting contract. And that expires this year, September 2nd, 2017, which is right around the corner. So the previous contract was for $62,400 with an amendment for including the fire station at $3,000. So this contract is for a 2-year period and allows for a single 2-year extension of service with the same financial terms. With regard to the fiscal impact, the landscape maintenance budget of $63,000 was anticipated in the fiscal year 2017-2018 general fund budget and was planned for with the widening and construction of Railroad Canyon Road in 2012. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Okay, can we have a motion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Haggerty? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Warren? Yes. Mayor Bonner?
Yes.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Well, just a comment, could we have some people that hadn't be at the beginning of the meeting? If there's anything that's on the agenda that you want to talk to us about, please go over there and just fill out a form, and we'll call you up. Please do that. Okay? All right, 10.2, discussion with possible direction to the staff regarding smoking restrictions.
Mayor and members of the council, Code Special Enforcement has received several complaints over the last couple of months regarding particularly smoking in the town center. After review with the city attorney, we found out that the city does not have a smoking ordinance. However, we have the ability to enforce state regulations regarding smoking based on the fact we're a general law city and the state has those standards. And so Code Enforcement sent out a letter to those in the town center as to the requirements for that, and giving them the information regarding that because we were getting so many complaints. And then obviously council's gotten some feedback regarding that. So what we'd like to do from the council is have a discussion about how you'd like us to go forward with regarding either education or even enforcing the smoking ordinances within the city.
Well, Aaron, there's a number of things. We're not questioning what the intentions were. We knew that there was some discussion relative, but what we didn't know is the thing that was actually sent out to the business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were getting calls for. And it looked kind of embarrassed when we get a call and we don't know what they're talking about.
Correct.
They know more. So we just got to be very careful. If we're going to communicate to our citizens, our business owners, we have to make sure the council members are aware of it beforehand, not after the fact. That's all. But I want to say something. It says in here, the PO has a number of smoking rules. GR 2.13, no smoking with 20 feet of any Canyon Lake POA building or within 25 feet of the park. Now, at the last POA meeting, and I cannot tell you if they voted on it or just talked about it, but the directors were having a feeling that if they made some of the parks space where people could smoke, then versus not being able to smoke at all, it would be under better control. But we need to find out if they change that rule. So you can smoke in the parks, but at certain designated areas.
I don't think that, I don't think that's, they didn't change it. And I think because unless we truly, you can read the different cities here of smoking bans, I see a couple things. We're really small in one respect. The enforcement side is horrific. I think because we're a general law city, the state has given guidelines on areas and distances of non-smoking eating establishments, those kind of things. And I think we use those guidelines and let that be our baseline of how we approach the non-smoking instead of us having our own ordinance. But that's just me. Because I think we're going to end up in having a very difficult time writing citations and all the stuff that goes with it.
But Larry, in here it says, this case indicates that a city smoking ban would be effective in the Property Owners Association common areas if applicable to them by the city ordinance. So what we're saying is if they've changed the rule for smoking in parks, we're going to have to have an ordinance that overrides that, if that's what we want to do.
Not unless we want a different one, because they're.
Well, if you read up here at the top where it talks about,
The city superseded by federal. So, federal's the top and then the
Sure.
state. But the POA can.
Yeah, to speak in the microphone.
The POA can designate their own rules, but if the city has a different rule, it would supersede theirs. If the state has a different rule than federal would supersede the state. So everybody tries to kind of work together, but the POA has a number of rules that aren't applicable outside the gates, and the smoking is one of those issues that they set up because they had a lot of trouble down by the tennis courts is where it all started. There was a lot of pot smoking down there, and the people playing tennis were sucking in, the breeze was blowing. I mean, I used to play tennis, and you'd almost get high from the people who were smoking outside. So they finally had so many complaints that they set their own rules for the parks and for their public areas. I had a call from a fellow who's having a problem. He is in business over here where the curved driveway is, that building, and there are a lot of people in that building that are smoking in the halls or smoking on the stairs if they're upstairs, smoking where the doors open and the smoke blows back in. And he called me, and I had Betsy send him a copy of the smoking rules. Apparently, this thing that was sent out, the owner of that particular building chose to ignore it, and that was why he was having a problem. So.
Yeah, please.
I was probably less offended by the surprise of that notice and more offended by the fact that everybody, and I got several calls and several walk-in visitors as I was going places, that they all felt like they were receiving a notice of violation, and that's not what that was. So we have, as a city, we have an obligation to take care of our citizens and also take care of our businesses. That's not good business sense, what we did. I haven't seen anything come out since then saying, gee, this is not what we meant to do. I really think there needs to be a follow-up because I'm not talking about just one or two people. I've been hit up by a lot of our businesses saying that, what do I do about this violation? And they weren't violating anything. So how it was handled was wrong. Let's just go from there and fix that. Let's send out something else so that the businesses know that what we're trying to do is give them information, give them the codes, the rules, so that they know what they can do going forward. This issue with a business smoking inside a building, there are certain businesses that if they have a certain number of employees or if they are owned by a family, some of those rules don't pertain to those businesses, but that's not what Dawn is talking about. Dawn is talking about a business that this is shared by other businesses that don't have those same standards. So we have to get that addressed separately instead of a shotgun we need a sniper. And so let's focus in on the one that's really been violating. And for the shotgun, let's be gentle with our people and explain to them so that they know what they have and what they can and cannot do. And let's go forward in a little more friendly manner.
We'll
So
put together,
I think Aaron and the code enforcement are gonna work really well together, and they're gonna let us know beforehand, before it's sent out.
so what we'll do is we'll put together a second letter. We'll send that to the council to see if they're okay with everything in it before we send it out. Yeah.
Does the state have smoking rules that, you know, like you staple them on the bulletin boards of the businesses or whatever that, you know?
Well, yeah, they have the little plastic signs, they have something
Yeah,
like that.
I was just wondering if we could
Karen, we need you to
get
speak
one
to
of
that.
those to each building to post somewhere.
We have no smoking signs posted now.
Arthur,
We have signs posted now, no smoking.
who's we?
The city.
Where? In our building, this building, but not in the other buildings.
Have them over at the hair salon.
Sounds like Jordan saying there is
No,
one.
I've never seen one.
The people stand underneath the sign and smoke.
Yeah, right next to the door. Well, the building that I got the call on, the complaint, there was nothing. And apparently, I guess when enforcement sent this letter out, the owner of the building, he went to the owner and said, okay, now, you know, this is offensive, my staff, blah, blah, blah. And the guy just wadded it up and threw it in the trash.
Okay, so I don't think at this particular, and you can disagree, but I don't think we need to make any motion at this point. We just have a discussion, and we want the direction as we
And I think
discussed.
staff's got direction. We'll go forward
Yeah.
and we'll put together that letter to go back out so it's more educational, and we'll send that to the council to get your blessing before we send it out.
Yeah, and I would like you to ask to talk to Eric and the POA, see if they.
Yeah, I've got that down. I'll send Eric an email and find out if anything's changed or if anything's on the horizon for possible change.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the speaker, what number?
10.3 is.
All right, let's get to 10.3.
What happened to weed abatement?
Okay.
So we're on 10.10.
10.4. Okay, update regarding weed abatement and fire hazard mitigation roles and responsibility. And Councilmember Green, I think you're going to take the role of that?
Okay, a lot of discussion. We had a busy winter last year, a lot of lots. And what's happened is we've gotten down to the last 13 lots, that it doesn't include residents that are, some of them are in foreclosure. Since that time, we've been talking about how the mechanisms we can use. And as of Monday, I had a meeting with the general manager of the POA. They are going to clean the 13 lots next week. Okay, we are, and what we're going to do between now and in the future is reestablish their program. And then when they get into very difficult situations that may be imminent threat, then we will either use our code enforcement in conjunction with our fire department, which according to their folks, then it can expedite their process. Because of the Davis-Sterling Act, they have timelines that are sent for mailers and for compliance issues, and they have to follow those or they get in trouble. And so those have all gone out, they're all done, and they've got their contractor on board, so that situation should be handled. After this, it's a case by case.
Any further questions?
I don't have
Any questions, the public? No? Okay, let's go to 10.5.
4.
I'm sorry, 10.4. Presentation on amended cannabis laws, initial discussion of city's position on commercial cannabis, am I saying that right? Cannabis? Operations. Oh, so Karen, you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we're here to discuss SB 94, which was passed in June 27 of this year. It's somewhat a bit of cleanup legislation. I anticipate there will be more legislation. I've attached a summary of proposed bills that have been sent. They have not been passed, and that's on page 300. That's for informational purposes. So basically, SB 94 says the city can't regulate mobile dispensaries, the city can't prohibit transportation on public roads, its city can't have a residency requirement, and the city can't regulate industrial hemp. But the city can enact more stringent regulations that don't conflict with SB 94. So we're here to get direction from council so we can prepare an ordinance and bring it back. We need to have the ordinance in place by January 1st, 2018, and that's when the state will start processing the applications. So we have a few questions. Do you want to continue the ban on the commercial, which is medical and recreational? Do you want to allow one and not the other? Do you want to allow retailing, distribution and testing? And do you want to continue regulating personal cultivation of indoor marijuana?
We can't stop that, can we?
You can't, no, you can't. Yes,
Just,
you can.
You're talking about regulations on
That's correct. So right now, there's a ban on commercial, so you can continue that if you want. And right now, there are regulations for personal indoor cultivation, so you can continue that.
We also have a ban on cultivating outdoors.
You have a ban on outdoor cultivation.
But they have
correct?
indoor. Six plants.
Regulation of indoor, ban on outdoor.
Okay. Did we also pull medicinal in that ban? Is medicinal?
I don't think so.
Didn't we ban, saying we weren't going to go that route?
Yes.
At that time, yes.
Okay, so we would reverse that if we decided to do something different.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something? All right, Justin? You want to talk, please?
Good evening, council. I'm in favor of basically what you guys are putting on the table for ordinance and regulation.
Is the mic on there?
Hello? Sorry about that. I just want to come forth in front of you guys today and say, I am in favor of you guys regulating it. And once you cause a regulation environment, you're going to have more control of it. You're talking about the smoking aspect, people smoking in public. Once you have something in place, you can dictate whether there's going to be fines, misdemeanor charges, whatever the case may be. Sorry, I'm not good at talking in front of people. There's a lot of benefits from it, not just from revenue, from taxes that you're going to bring forth for your community, but a lot of different aspects from it, from safe access for consumers, and they don't have to worry about where it's coming from, if it's clean medication, a lot of different benefits from it. We came to you guys' last meeting that was regarding to this with the Longwood group, and we just want to offer our services.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have a couple of pieces of papers for you too, regarding taxes and whatnot.
Who is that?
He was here before with the hands.
Okay, any,
No, it's just under California law.
but you should talk to people about. All right, is there any,
Well, I have a couple of questions. What is it that we're trying to accomplish with this ordinance?
Well, you have to have an ordinance in place by January 1st, 2018. If you don't, then it's basically, I don't want to say it's a free-for-all, but it's going to be much more difficult to go backwards and clean up what should have been done. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So it's whether we're going to allow recreational, medicinal, or restrict it all. That's really bottom line, isn't it?
Also cultivation,
Cultivation.
retail, distribution, testing. And if you do allow it, then you have to give us direction, how many do you want to see? Do you want to see one facility, 2, 3? Are you going to limit it in certain areas of the city?
Well, to go back to what I was talking about earlier, and how many years I've been here in Canyon Lake, I seem to be the person that hears things that other people don't hear quite so often. And I don't want to be disclosing information that's not proper to do. I have never done anything with drugs. I don't know anything about them. I don't know the effects of them. But I do know that things are closing in on us here in this city. And it's with good authority that I know that if we don't do something to legalize a dispensary, whatever that dispensary consists of, somebody else is going to very close by, and we're going to miss out on the revenue. Now, maybe we don't want the revenue, but I thought that that's what this was all about as far as keeping the city alive. I'm not advocating doing drugs. These dispensaries are medicinal as well as recreational, I guess. And as I say, I'm probably in the minority here in my presentation, but I think we should at least open our eyes and consider having the ability to regulate it here ourselves rather than have some other city do it, and perhaps recklessly doing things underground here opposed to doing them legally. So those are my comments.
I would like to make a comment, please. When this whole marijuana thing first came up before the state law was passed, I did a lot of research. I met with a number of people. I happened to be in Sacramento, and I met with the labor attorney for the Growers Association. I met with the police chief of Long Beach. I met with, well, Aaron and I went and met with the sheriff or the captain in Paris and discussed it. I spent a lot of time, and when I started, I was all for having a dispensary in Canyon Lake, putting it back up in a corner someplace out of the way where we could get some tax off of it. I thought that was a great idea. After meeting with all these various people, and even the attorney for the growers had to agree with the points that I made as I discovered the negative things about it. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll have to wait and see, but the cities that have had dispensaries, medical, quote, quote, but they're really more than that, we all know that. Crime rate has increased significantly in every one of those cities. Now, Beaumont has authorized growers and dispensaries, and I figured we might want to, if we certainly even wanted to consider it, which would not be my personal recommendation, I would want to wait and see how their crime rate is after a period of time, and they open their dispensaries. Everything, I was all for it, and everything I heard convinced me that I would say, we don't want dispensaries, we don't want to allow manufacturing or distribution, and we don't want any kind of licensing system. Yeah, they'll be open right down the street on the city line probably, and somebody else get the tax, but they also get the crime. And yeah, we're gonna have higher crime because of it, because you get high and you do all kinds of stupid things you wouldn't do if you weren't. But I just think we ought to keep it out of the city. That's my personal opinion after, and by the way, I sent Betsy a lot of the research information that I had. I think she passed it on the various research that I did.
If I could say a couple things, I would like to see a comparison between what's taken in, the money that is taken in by a small city, let's say, even Beaumont, versus what's going out in extra law enforcement. Lieutenant Q can speak to this directly, I'm sure. And the concerns that are being shared are valid in that there's strong statistics to support those opinions. My concern is that we can't backpedal from this. I don't know that we would be getting as much of a benefit from the intake as we would be. We're a very small area. If we were a big city, perhaps they could absorb the additional crime and the additional concerns that occur when these come in. We're a very small city and we can't absorb it. We don't have an officer that can be at the ready all the time. We just don't have the resources. So I don't know that we would be necessarily happy to be buying into this. I think that we went through this before because we had to put in temporary. I would like to see some more statistics, real statistics of what are the benefits versus what are the downfalls before we decide. I don't know if we have the manpower that we can spend to look into that, or how easy it is to find that information.
I will add something to that. The governor of Colorado, I pulled up online a meeting that he had with various heads of the different departments in Colorado, and he made the statement that he regrets that they ever legalized it in Colorado because the costs, he went into all the costs, and I can't remember if that's an article I sent to Betsy or if it was something I read and just absorbed, but the cost for the treatment of the various problems and issues brought up by the misuse was far exceeding the benefit of the taxes. So they were running in the red. It was not something they thought they were going to make all this money, and their policing costs, their hospital, everything increased. And I also spoke with the head of the pediatrics for the Children's Hospital in Portland, and she said they've had a 300% increase in children, babies and small children being brought in comas, and many of them died from ingesting marijuana, candies and brownies and whatever else they make with them, because the oils are so much stronger now. You read almost every day, and this was something that the police chief in Long Beach told me about, is the explosions in the house. There was one just the other day in the paper. He was trying to refine they try and get the oils and the mixture of the heat and the moisture and the chemicals. These houses explode all the time. They'd had a number of deaths and a number of fires in Long Beach from this type of thing. So you have all of those extra policing, fire, medical issues, as well as, just the run-of-the-mill crime that goes on. So it's something that I would very much suggest that we stay away as far as possible from, because I don't think we can afford, for one thing, we haven't got the manpower to cover an increase in crime. We can't afford to add an extra 2 or 3 staff to take care of the problems. Any income that we made, I think, would be negligible if you consider the costs involved in treating the problems.
Can I,
Real quick, because I forgot.
because you got yours, okay, go.
I forgot to mention also, and I don't know if there's a way we can find this out, but I'm under the impression, I was told that as far as the money we might receive from taxes, it can't even go into the bank at this point because the federal government, because the federal law does not allow it. So this money, we won't be seeing any money in taxes. If it's there, it's not going to be there for a long time because it can't go. Can you address that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you'll actually be able to obtain tax funds. You'll actually be able to obtain tax funds, and the way that it's being set up, it's being set up as actual tax fees, as like regulations that you're going to have your applications, As far as actual law enforcement, like you were saying, to be able to regulate the industry, to come in and make sure that everybody's operating properly, these are our fees that are going to be addressed back to the industry. On top of that, the state of California is allotting financials for you guys to be able to have the ability to regulate the industry. They're allotting more money to the police department to be released by the state to be able to help regulate this. I wish my attorney ran along with was here to be able to, give you a better description of it. But we'll be more than happy to provide you with all the literature, the percentages that are going back to the city, the cities that are currently operating, and actually the decrease in crime that has gone on with the regulated end. Now, there is still a big problem with the unregulated, such as the city of Santa Ana. You have 11 licensed shops, 16 now licensed shops, but you still have 25 unlicensed shops. These are the ones that are causing those issues. The things that you're seeing on the news, the problems with the medication that have things in it that are causing people to go into comas or get a fungus in their lungs and stuff. It's the lack of regulation. It's not the regulation that's causing these issues, because these issues already exist. These houses are already blowing up in Long Beach and whatnot. It's lack of regulation.
But they are blowing up in places where there are legal dispensaries. So a legal dispensary isn't necessarily going to stop people from manufacturing in their home.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And
So
that's where regulation is going to come into play, police enforcement and whatnot. 'Cause
Okay.
it's just like a meth house that's in a home. There's
Okay.
no regulation that somebody can go in there and extract in their home. It's illegal. It's a
Right.
volatile substance.
Yeah, we just don't have the manpower, so. Okay,
Right.
thanks. I think there were other questions that I interceded. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that made, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
I said Larry, and then I think Jordan has hand up too.
Who gets to go?
You go.
I get to go, okay. This is really a moral issue for me, thinking about what is right and wrong here. But there's a couple of things that come into play, and I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think about prohibition, and then as alcohol becomes prevalent and people regulate how many liquor stores they have in their community because they want to make sure that they don't have too many based on the population base. So we've moved from an illegal substance, illegal labs, into a legalized marijuana, medical and recreational use. Whether we like it or not, people are going to buy this that live in our community, whether they go to Lake Paris or they go to Elsinore or whomever has the shop. So will we stop their usage? No. Will we stop the illegal use? The only way that'll happen will be Lieutenant Q's busting them. But those fires you hear, what they're doing is using high propane, and they're making what they call honey oil, and that's a very volatile process, but that's an illegal process. So I think we have to look at, I think you're right, Vicki. Is it worth the effort to license it? Is it the cost benefit? But whether we like it or not, it's legalized, and if we got to have something in place as of January. So we really need to think about this, because whether we like it or not, there's going to be many, many people that are going to buy it and use it. And I can tell you from not my personal, but I have personal friends that have used the medicinal marijuana for arthritis, not smoking, but they have an oil, and they say there is nothing on the market that works as good as that, takes their pain away. So, again, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, some of what I was going to say has just been confirmed by Larry, and I wanted to mention to Dawn, which has also been said, that we're just a lot better off. Well, first, let me back up for a moment so that there's no misunderstanding of what my presentation is for. Somebody has just, two people, I should say, have told me that a dispensary is coming, and they know that for a fact. And they were only telling me that, if there was anything the city of Canyon Lake wanted to consider, this might be the time to do it. I don't have a dog in this fight. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just passing on the information. But as Larry said, we've gone from bathtub gin to liquor stores that sell everything that are regulated. And if we have the opportunity to regulate something rather than have the illegal underground, the explosions, and the babies ingesting a product that probably maybe is contaminated. I don't know how they treat this or make it. I've never been even interested in it. But I think that if there's a revenue stream that's available to us, regardless of how small our city is, then we ought to at least look into it and take advantage of having that opportunity to control it ourselves. So, end of my speech again.
And here I go again. My theory was, and the reason I was all for this, was that if we had a dispensary here, I was very stressed that every house could have their own little six plants, each plant's size of one of these tables, but they could have 6 plants. And I thought, well, and I had met with this head of the children's pediatrics, and it was so depressing. And I thought, people that grow in the community, are they going to keep it in a locked room that a teenager can't get a key made and have access to easily? Because my kids, I'm sure, would have been that creative, and kids today are definitely that creative. Would they leave brownies laying around that a small child could ingest? And I thought, if we had a dispensary, maybe it would discourage people from growing their own if there was an easy access to it right across the street. And that was the whole basis after I had all these meetings was, well, maybe it would discourage some people from growing. Well, I talked to some people that are planning on growing and use marijuana on a regular basis, and they just looked at me and laughed. People are going to grow their own because it's cheaper. Well, I don't think it really will be when you look at the water and the cost of electricity, but maybe they think it is. But based on everything that I heard, that theory went out the window, because I don't think it's going to prevent anybody that wants to grow or refine the oils or do whatever they want to do, legal or illegal. Because we have a dispensary, I don't think it's going to discourage very many people from growing their own. They can go a few blocks each direction. I'm sure there'll be a dispensary in the area. So I don't think if we have one here, we got the crime. And it's not going to discourage anybody. So,
All right, I want to just pass 2 short stories. Last Friday, I went to the meeting with the mayors of Riverside County, and 2 things were really said that I thought was really relevant to what we're talking about. Tim Walker, who is the mayor of Willamar, and his wife were in Seattle, and they went to a movie. The movie starts with the governor talking about all the issues they have in the state of Washington because of where they've done the decisions they made relative to marijuana. And then a person followed that, was actually a user, hardly could stand up trying to talk about all the things that she went through because of the problems in the state of Washington. State of Washington is one of the most liberal states in our nation, and they've come to that conclusion. And Colorado, I think, has come to the same conclusion. The other one I thought kind of interesting is Scott Miller, who is the mayor of San Jacinto. That council, it turns out that growing marijuana is vegetation land, okay? So they have decided as a council, he said it took a long time to get there, but they've made a decision to have 3 approved distributors growing marijuana, but then their citizens aren't going to be able to use it. And another mayor said, let me see if I got this right. You're saying you're going to grow the marijuana and then you're going to have our citizens to come over and buy it for you, for your profit. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's so many issues on this whole subject, and we're just not ready, right, in my opinion, to make a a decision as exactly what we want to do going forward. But that's my position. If other people have a different, that's fine. But I think we got a long ways to go before we get to that point.
Well, we have till January, and that's, not,
2018, yeah.
it's not that long.
Yeah, you're right.
It wouldn't hurt to hold the council just to see where we're at right now.
Okay. Dick, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'll be very brief. I would ask you as you do consider this not to be motivated by fear or by greed, but to just simply follow the vision statement. So at this point, I'm neither for nor against. I just ask you to make a decision that says that you follow the vision that the city of Canyon Lake is to be the city that provides a quality of life that makes Canyon Lake the premier place to live in Southern California, rather than be afraid of something or be trying to get something. So prevent something versus get revenue. So just be guided by your vision statement, please.
Okay, Don, that's a good idea. So let's start with Larry Green. What's your?
On these three, the
Speak
three
in your
questions
speaker, please.
For the council.
Hold on. Let me get back to my list.
It's on page 289 at the bottom. Does the council want to allow dispensaries? Does the council want to allow manufacturing and distribution? Do we wish to consider a nonprofit license system?
Okay. Frankly, I need some more info to make a conscious decision. As I told you, I wrangled with this based on what I used as an analogy, but I think Vicky's got some important things. I think I can't bury my head in the sand and say, well, if we don't do anything or we say no, it's going to go away. But I also want to make it the best decision that I can for our community, and so I need more info.
And Larry, how much time do you think it's going to be able to, because you're going to be gone for a month, right? I'm sorry?
I'm going to research it, and by the time it comes back to all of us to talk about it, there'll be enough information to say, because Vicky's asked some financial things, I think that, so that's where we're going on a little too long about your financial.
Okay, Aaron, let's make sure we keep it in the agenda for next month and
Yeah.
for the
Well,
follow-up.
mhm.
Okay, who's Councilmember Hagerty? You want to give us your summary?
No on all three?
Your what? I'm sorry? Yeah, your summary.
No on dispensaries. No on manufacturing or distribution. On the nonprofit licensing system, I'm not sure what that means. If you're growing your own, I think we should regulate that every way we possibly can legally. I think we should have the right to go in and inspect to make sure that it's safe fire-wise and that it's secured from children, that, any of the issues that would be of concern to us, that would be a threat to the neighbors or to their children or whatever, that if there's a way that we can protect those people by any kind of regulations. So I wouldn't say no to the nonprofit licensing system until I understand specifically what that means, because I definitely think we should be able to figure out some good regulations or requirements, ways of monitoring people, but definitely no on the first two.
Okay, Jordan?
Well, I think I've spoken to this on a couple of occasions now. And I would like to think that Canyon Lake is a progressive city, and certainly don't want to see, well, I don't know exactly how to put it. I mean, I'm not selling marijuana or any illegal drugs, or I don't have any part of it doing such a thing. I'm passing on information that I was told that said that, we don't want to see things pass us up when we have an opportunity. We should be able to control things just like having a sphere of influence on property around us. we ought to be able to control our own destiny. I think that we're not going to be alone. Other cities are going to face the same dilemma, and there are going to be a whole lot more regulations put in place. You're never going to stop the illegal process, whether we legalize it or not, but I do think that we have an opportunity here, and I just don't want to keep sounding like I'm opening up a dispensary, because I have nothing to do with this. But I want our city to benefit if there is such a benefit. And I also want us to be able to control it and make sure that we're doing things the correct way. 5 or 10 years from now, it'll probably be a very common thing. I don't know that I'll be here to look back on this, but I do hope that something like this will benefit everyone. So that's my opinion, again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a very close friend who benefits greatly from medical marijuana because of his rheumatoid arthritis. And so this has been a difficult thing for me when we addressed it earlier this year and as we address it now. Perhaps if I was in a larger city where I wouldn't think our citizens were impacted so greatly, I would view it differently. We're in a small little canyon lake. I still feel a need to protect the citizens from the things that have occurred in Colorado and Washington and all these other cities who have embraced this. We won't see the money as quickly as we've been led to believe, and we won't see as much as we think we will to offset the costs that we will have to be facing. So I would have to say I'd like to continue the ban on commercial, continue the ban, no retail establishments, no commercial growing, and I would like to see better regulations for indoor locked doors, barricades, whatever it takes to protect the children, and continue our ban on outdoor cultivation.
Okay, I think I'm pretty much on board with the rest of the council. I'm the same. I don't want commercial and I don't want retail. I don't think manufacturing or distribution is in our mission statement, as Dick said. Dick said, yeah. And a relative to a nonprofit license system within the city, I guess I'm with Dawn on that. We need to find more information what that means. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to ask the council members until the next council meeting to do due diligence on this very special issue. And yes, this January 1st, 2018 is not that far away. So we need to be able to come back a month from now and have more information and try to get closer to what we want to, what decisions we want to make before, in front of the of our citizens. At the same time, I encourage Justin, I encourage Dick, anybody else that has opinions relative to this subject to please communicate with our city council members and let us know their feeling. Because the more information we have for the citizens, it just makes it easier that we're doing the right thing for our citizens. So I would appreciate anything that could do that. So with that said, unless anybody feels different, I'd like to just
Randy,
move forward.
I asked that Betsy forward to each of the council members any of the information that I sent her that she still has.
Okay.
That'll save you guys a little bit of time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to 10.5. Discussion and possible direction by the council regarding city hall hours.
Yep. Mayor and members of the council, this was brought up at the July 12th meeting and information was asked to come back. We talked with the finance director. He came up with some more solid numbers with regards to if we were to change from our current system now where we're 9.5-hour days, 38-hour work week. If we went to 8-hour days, 5 days a week, 40-hour work week. Based on that, we'd have a total payroll increase of almost $5,000. That includes PERS, Medicare, I forget what the other incidental taxes were, but that was all the payroll costs. Utilities were a little bit more broad. He said he averaged them all out, and as you can see, there's a range there from 1,500 to 3,000, and he says that could be anywhere in there depending on summer months when we're running. If that kicks us up into another tier, that could make the utilities higher, as opposed to the winter months when they're probably less. And so you're looking at anywhere from $6,500 to $8,000 increase if you switch to a 5-day a week, 8-hour a day operation.
How does staff feel? Have you talked to staff?
With talk to staff, I think that's just there's something they're comfortable with. Is that I would say they're preferred the 4-hour work week. They like to have the Fridays off. They do their best to schedule those things, doctor, dentist appointments on their Fridays off. And so they like that flexibility. Now also, the other big question was regards to overtime / comp time, kind of one and the same, so we'll deal with it as overtime. That would affect the non-exempt hourly employees. So right now, if based on what we have now, we have 1 day of overtime that comes every month because of the council meeting. And so based on our work hours now, after 5:30 is when the non-exempt hourly employee starts to incur overtime. They incur after 5:30. If we go to the five-day week, 8 hours, they would incur overtime after 5 o'clock. So it would start a half an hour sooner on the comp time. I know a couple of meetings ago we had some issues with some overtime there because we had some reports getting in late or whatever. We've done some things internally now to where we cut that off now at 9 o'clock on Thursdays, just to make sure that we get all the staff reports and everything done and the agenda out in a reasonable time, so that's all done easily in the afternoon on Thursday, so it's not an issue.
I would like two things before we make a decision on this. I would like a breakdown of that $4,900. I want
Okay.
to see where that went. My point is, we're talking about 2 more hours,
Right.
and it's going to cost $5,000 for 2 more hours for each employee.
Right, per week.
Okay, I
So
need to see the
I have
breakdown.
the spreadsheet. Terry
Okay.
sent it to me. I can email that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, please.
Not a problem.
I'd also like to know how much, up until now, how much are we paying in overtime? Because I believe there's an offset here. I believe that we have been incurring a great deal of overtime, considerable overtime at least, let's just go back 60 days. Let's go back June and July, May, June, and July. And give me an idea of what the overtime has been over 38 hours. So I would like to compare that to what we would have for another 2 hours that we wouldn't be paying overtime.
Okay.
If we're paying 3 hours in overtime at 1.5, and we're paying 2 hours in regular time, then we're coming out ahead. So if our overtime hours are considerable, we need to see those and not just this half an hour. I understand what you're saying, and I
About the
see where
half
that
an hour,
comes from.
okay. Mhm.
But that's not the big picture that we need to look at. The big picture we need to look at is how much money are we spending right now because the employees are not there on Fridays, and versus how much would we recoup by having them there? It's an extra 2 hours.
And one other issue that I know I have Jim looking at is how will that affect our contract with Charles Abbott if there will still be closed or if they can have counter hours from 8 to 12 as well on Fridays.
I think what we had talked about last time was that they would not be affected at all. This is staff only. This is internal office staff, not contract workers.
Right, but I mean whether or not we would want to have hours. I mean, we could still. Right now they still do inspections or whatever, but we don't have counter hours on Friday, correct?
Right. I don't think we were anticipating that you would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jordan, you have
Oh, my question is, how did this originate? Are we not getting the work done in 4 days that the last several years that we've been doing this? Is there a need for this 5th day? There's a morale problem also. I think that having a 3-day weekend, and I'm not going to go into my past history again, but I know what it does for the employees, and I know what it does for their morale. Certainly, I think that's an important factor to consider. If we're not getting the work done, then by all means, we should be open 7 days a week if that's what it takes. But if we're falling short of providing services, then I'd like to know what area that is that we're deficient in. So that would help me make my decision.
Well, Jordan, I think Vicki was the one that originally brought the topic up and is asking the same questions. And so all she's trying to do is, number one, find out what the numbers are and how they come about. And number two, because of changes that Aaron has mentioned and his staff, it looks like now they can get it done in 4 days. And so I can tell you, I have not heard one person come to me or call me and say, Randy, how come the City Hall isn't open on Fridays? Has anybody else heard one?
I haven't.
Have you? Have you?
Unanswered calls on Fridays. One was somebody that went in and then said to me later over the weekend, I don't understand why we're still closed on Fridays. This is a person who deals in my business with the courts, where the courts were during our downfall with the economy, the courts closed 1 day a week, but they've all opened back up again because things are changing and they need to. Some of them are closing again, but that's what this person was comparing it to. And then the other had to do with a phone call, that they had made a phone call and couldn't get an answer. My concern really, though, was that I was hearing over and over again that projects weren't getting done. I don't have time for this. I haven't had time for that. Overtime has been put in place. There was considerable comp time being incurred. And if that's the case, then we either need to have the 2 hours back where we have another full workday that we can work, or find another solution. So that was one of the reasons I wanted it looked at.
Okay. Well, I think it was a good idea. And by the way, I'm not very good at delay making decisions. So if we can't make a decision on 10-4 and 10-5, it's fine with me. But I'd like to, for sure, be able to do that in the September City Council meeting. That's my desire.
We just need to compare apples
Mhm.
and apples. We need to know how much it would be 4-day week with the overtime versus.
Dawn, you got to talk into your microphone.
And turn it on.
Right, I've got that, and so I'll get together with Terry.
Yeah, we
I
just
think-
need to compare the
And I think
two.
what I want to do is I want to go back 6 months, so I'll start from the beginning of the year, just to kind of have a little bit more, see where we're at.
And as far as, I know I had staff that worked 4 days. Some of the people, we had a staggering thing so that, we were covered 5 days, but everybody worked 4. And it turned out really well because we found that there were less people taking time off for doctor's appointments and for whatever, because they would plan anything they had to do for the day off. So the attendance was much more consistent with the 4-day week.
I think somebody once said, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And if we're providing the services in 4 days, why change it?
And if the staff is happy, that's.
Okay, let's just be ready to talk about it in September and make a decision, one way or another.
It's okay with me.
Okay, the last one is discussion of City Council equipment reimbursement policy for cell phone and home internet. And usually the mayor is the one that talks the last, but I'm going to talk the first on this one. I am very much against having a city cell phone. I have one, I don't need 2 cell phones. And when you get your bill, and I'll give you a perfect example at our house. Sue has a cell phone and her charges. I have a cell phone and my charges. And then there's some associated fees or what have you. And I put it together, I put it on the reimbursement form, I sign it and forward, and it's never been an issue. So I don't know why we need to have a city cell phone on top of our smartphones that we already have. In case of Jordan, which is fine, it works for you, But the rest of us, as far as I know, we have our own cell phone, and we don't need another one. That's two to walk around with. That's my position. Sorry, I'm saying first.
Hey, well, apparently this is kind of directed at me. I see my name here.
No, I said
I'm only kidding. 9 years ago, when I came off of the POA and came onto the city council, they said you can't have that POA phone anymore. You have to have a city council phone. I said, okay, and that's all there was to it. There wasn't any more discussion. If you don't want me to have a phone, I don't care.
No.
I mean, that really, it doesn't, hey, I fought even taking the phone because I didn't like it. But I am using a city phone, and my charges are bundled in with the city phones. There's never a time that I've ever used more hours or whatever it is that they charge it for. So, hey, I'll accept anything that anybody wants to do.
I think this is driven, excuse me,
Let's
Mr.
make it-
Mayor.
I understand.
What works for you is fine.
Okay.
I believe the other 4 council members, you can correct me if I'm wrong, have their own cell phones and know how to put it on a reimbursement form at monthly. And that's all I'm saying.
Okay, well,
I think one of the things that, if, in the memo here, just understanding that new legislation, that means that your personal cell phone and emails can be sequestered and used and put for review. So that means anything you've got on your personal, if you got a situation and they ask for it, you got to give it. So if it's on a city phone, and I think this is why it's come this way, then you've got the phone and you're going to take care of city business and not have your personal on it. For me,
That sounds like government.
well, I'm reading it right off here.
That has been there for years. When we went through ethics training, they always told us,
Well,
the cell phones you have are always possible to be open.
But it says new legislation.
Huh?
It says new legislation.
No, that's just more government.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Anyway, for me, I'm using it as a tax deduction, so I'm not putting the forms in.
So I guess, just real quick, so I guess the question first that I think you want to answer, do you want to keep the reimbursements, or do you want to get rid of them and go to the city cell phone? What would what would the council like to do there?
Well, if I could say part of the problem, I understand what you're saying, but one of the wrinkles we found when all of this occurred was that some members, I am one, I don't put in for cell phone or internet, just to make that really clear right now. But I am one person who my cell phone is on a family plan, so it's not cut and dried.
Right.
My son is also on my same family plan, and he's buying a phone, so that money goes in there. So we have to come up with something. If we're going to continue to accept people submitting their cell phone bill to be reimbursed, we're going to have a new wrinkle in there. It's going to have to go further, that we'll have to say that it'll have to be broken down by family plan, it'll have to be broken down by taxes, that maintenance fees for my son's new iPhone shouldn't be paid by the city, but how do I know what's in there?
Family plan, but the one I'm on breaks down by phone.
Right.
So my daughter just makes a copy of my phone and it gives all the charges. So you don't have to worry about it.
Including taxes and everything else?
Yeah,
Though we would just have to word it that those on a family plan would have to submit their actual hard bill that shows the amount that goes just to their phone. I think mine does too. Mine's all electronic. I don't look. Doesn't matter. I'm not turning it in. But I understand the concern.
Well, the cell phone that your son uses.
Yeah.
Is it a different number than the one you use?
It's a different number, and it does, I know that his calls break down and that kind of thing, so, but my only point was, one of the options is to continue with what we had. We can't continue with what we had. We have to have it a little bit more clear. We have to break it down so that we know exactly what we're requiring of people and what they're asking.
And I'm sorry, I believe the ad hoc committee was fine with the 40 and 60. Is that changed?
Money-wise?
Yes. Or were you both fine still with the 40 and 60?
Yeah, I don't think that was.
That's not an issue, right?
It was
Obviously,
the documentation.
Right.
And I think that how it's submitted and how you show it and all the things that we've added in that. It's part of it if you submit it. So, and I think that's an individual thing. I personally don't want a phone. So-
No, I don't want a city phone either. that was a problem. So.
So I guess the.
So can we have a motion to approve the 40 and 60 and no city cell phones other than Jordan?
Or if they want one, it can still be an option.
Oh, that could be an
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, there's an option.
I think that I'll make the motion
Okay.
on those, that particular verbiage, that if you desire to take the phone, and Jordan, that could be you, then it's okay. And the 40 and 60 are the set marks for reimbursement with the appropriate paperwork.
So what we'll do is because we talked about this, so we'll clean up the current policy, spell out the numbers. We actually have a new reimbursement form. We'll send it out to the ad hoc committee, get your feeling on it, and then I'd like to send it to admin and finance for them to take a look at it as well.
So this is gonna be another September?
Well, no, yeah, it'll be September, but we'll do admin and finance, and we have it for final approval in September. We'll bring it to the council.
Okay.
Okay,
And-
we'll get out in there in the next week or two to the ad hoc, and then if you guys are quick turnaround and send it, then I'll probably, to cover both of them, I'll send it to the mayor as well. That way it covers both committees. You guys give me your input, and then we'll put it on for the 2 meetings in September.
And I wanted to
You
add,
need a motion on that?
no, you gave us direction.
That's direction.
Hmm?
It's just direction, and we have that.
And we'll come back in September for it. But two of the things I wanted to bring up, one has to do with the reimbursement. And although it may seem easy to do the family plan, if we have to go back and audit, it takes a lot of staff time to go through every single person's. And then you don't just look at the whole number, you look to see what are city calls and what are personal calls. It's a lot of work for the difference of $1. So that is something you need to consider. The other thing is that under the new interpretation of the laws, it opens up your own personal cell phone to a Public Records Act request.
And that's
It
what I'm
has.
saying. But that's not,
It's how they're interpreting the law.
that's not a new subject. That's been around for a long time.
It has, but the San Jose case basically reinterpreted and made it much more wider.
It was a Supreme Court case that was holding it back for a lot of years, but it's.
And by the way, Karen, at least in our case, it has the number of minutes for the phone, the number of minutes for texting, and what have you, but it doesn't have a list of every call that you made in the last month. It's just summaries. It's very simple.
Well, my phone, how mine works is that it has every single phone number that I called or received from, and texted from, and then I'd have to circle and say, singular AT&T.
Yeah, we'd still have to do that.
Right.
Because.
It's not a total.
No, okay, so this is, and I knew I'd lost the thought for a second. This is where the real problem comes in. I can put down that my phone bill is a total of $53. But my usage for the city isn't $53. I only made 3 calls that week, or I only sent 2 texts that week, or, so when it gets down to it, it is not that easy to make that happen. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. How do we do that? How do we regulate so that are you going to, well, you aren't, because you did the smart thing and started using a city phone. You don't have to worry about it.
I made it easy for everybody.
You made it very easy for everybody. But, so are you going to sit down with your phone bill and circle which ones of your phone calls were?
But they don't even have that. It's not even on the
Well,
bill.
but that's the point. Then we can't,
If
it's
you
not
talk
accurate.
to other cities.
We did talk to other cities.
Okay, well, the people, I've talked to several of them, they just, I mean, my phone bill is $75 a month. That's what I pay my daughter.
Yeah.
So $40 isn't even, well, yeah, it's half, little over half. But the people I've talked to about, you know, how does your stipend work and what do you do for allowing? And most people I talk to, they just get a flat fee and they don't worry about, you know, circling every call. It's not obviously your full phone bill, but they get an allowance. and that's their city allowance. To me, the idea of having, I mean, I'd just take a city phone before I'd have to sit down and circle and keep a note of every time I send a text or got a phone call from somebody. That would be the nightmare from hell. So to me, if we're going to have it, it should just be a stipend or allowance or whatever you call it. And it's just a flat amount, and I don't care if it's 30 or 20 or 40 or whatever it is, but it's just, that's it. And it's
But
a
Don,
portion of your
you
bill.
have to have supporting documentation that
It's not a
shows from the
stipend.
telephone, here's
It's-
the cost for this phone.
Well, yeah, you attach your bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's not a
But-
stipend, guys. It's a reimbursement, and that's a difference in the tax
And
code.
I understand what you're asking,
And-
but it's not, we can't do it. We can't do a stipend.
No, it's not a stipend.
Yeah,
That was the
and we
wrong
can't,
word.
it's not allowed, right?
Correct.
Yes.
It's not a stipend, it's a true reimbursement.
Right,
Right.
right. We cannot build that. The only way, if you want an extra $100 a month, just so that you can cover all of this, is we'd have to vote ourselves a raise. And that'd be the only, right? That'd be the only way to get that extra
Right, and-
$100 a month without having to go through all this.
And then that wouldn't
No,
take
you have
effect
to have
until after the
doc-
next election.
You have
So
to have
November, or,
documentation.
Right.
Like,
It's seasonal
on the
below.
internet, it's only $20 for me,
Right.
because it says right on the bill, $20.
Right.
I don't put 40 in there, I put
Right.
money. All right, let's,
well, so we'll clean up that language, we'll send it out to the committees, get your feedback in, we'll bring it back in September.
Okay, so the
for-
policy is going to have to include that line by line, you've got to circle which calls and which texts had to do with your,
Vicki, you
so that
can't
we're
do
not.
that, because you
Give
don't
me a
get that
city phone, then I'm
information.
not.
I do. I mean, I do get that information.
I don't get that information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then that's what we're saying, and that's, I understand, but that's why we're where we are right now, and that's why we're having to face this. It's not not a personal choice, it's not because I want it that way, it's because those are the laws and those are the facts. So if we're going to do this, where we have a reimbursement policy for phone bills, then we're going to have to, in case of an audit, and you know we'll be targeted, in case of an audit, we're going to have to be able to show that on Tuesday, the 16th, I made a call to my mom instead of to the city, and I
Right,
got paid for it.
And so we'll get some direction from the city attorney on how we can put that verbiage in there. It sounds like it'll be a little cumbersome, but not as bad as I think as you're making it sound it to be. So it's, you know, once you tell.
Oh, I think it'll be terribly cumbersome. I've had to do it, it's a pain.
That's what I think people aren't understanding.
You don't have those issues.
Right, right, but it's, the city's got to buy the phone, which is a hell of a lot more money than $30 a month.
I'm the only one that keeps getting up. Jeez.
I'm afraid
What's
to.
going on?
Just to pay for the phone, because that way
I know.
Carry two phones around it. What can you do?
Okay, so I want to make sure staff's clear. We're going to go forward with this with the 40 and 60, get some direction from the city attorney on how to verbalize the documenting of the cell
I
phone.
guess I can't.
Correct?
ask for $40 on top of it.
Okay. You got, would you like my comments?
Moving on, it's time for the city manager comments.
Okay, just real quick, the station's been open for almost a month, and so I have our first set of numbers, and so we just got them, so I wanted to go over them real quick. Just on general, they had 67 the city had 67 calls, 55 of them were medical aid, so it's, you know, just over 82%. And so in the response time, less than 5 minutes, 79% were less than 5 minutes. Between 5 and 10, we're at 18%, and we only had one over 10. I have a email out to the battalion chief, Chief Davis, to find out what happened, because it's on Mustang, which is over off of Greenhorn, so it's over there, and I'm like, okay, Station 60 should have been there in like 2 minutes, right? So I don't know if there was some staging or something involved, so I'm getting more detail on the call. When I get that, I'll let you know. And based on the deployment model for the county, the way County Fire set up, so out of those 67 calls, 41 or 61% were fielded by Station 60 first. Station 94 in Lake Elsinore, they responded 27% of the time, 18 of the calls. And then Station 8 or Station 5 in Quail Valley was 12%. It was 8 calls. So Canyon Lake was getting actually a higher call volume first in engine than I was anticipating, which is good. More bang for our buck. And I just kind of broke it down, just so you know, I just kind of did it based on our annual cost. It was $1,784 a call.
How many were medical?
82%, 55 out of the 67.
And how many of the calls that we were first on were outside the gates?
That I don't know.
Let's find out.
Well, because these are our calls in here.
The call they went on was outside the gates.
Right, so that's another, when Chief Davis gets back to me, I'll ask him, how many times did we respond to Elsinore or Menifee and get those calls? Yeah, I would love to see that too, because obviously that helps them as well.
Brian Tinsdale would love to hear about how many times they said.
Yeah, if they were somewhere, if Station 94 was on training and we had to respond to Canyon Hills, that happens. So that's all I have.
Now, my question is, Consul, can he release the reimbursement forms that he's been holding for the last 90 days? Or do we have to wait for another month?
You mean
Like,
expenses that have been
right,
turned
do
in?
you want me to
Yeah.
do you want me to process the expense forms, or do you want me to wait another month? What would the council like?
Is there documentation with the forms?
Why don't you just wait and retroactive, whatever?
Well, I haven't looked at them all. I've been putting them in a stack, waiting for the file. I can go through them and let you know what I have. Right.
Don, what did you say?
So I can go through them tomorrow and actually send out the council an email saying,
Because
I've received this one from this council member, and find out.
I've got copies of everything.
Okay.
I haven't turned any yet.
We can do that, maybe put together a quick spreadsheet.
Why don't you do this?
I know I have the mayor's, I have Councilmember Aaron Krantz. Those are the ones I have. I don't think, Councilmember Green, I've had anything new from you. I don't think, there might be one for you, but I'll look. And then I've got this stack from like 2 years from Councilmember Warren, or Mayor Pro Tem Warren, because she keeps sending them all the time. So, no, that's right. Yeah, in invisible ink, so. She's easy because she doesn't submit them, so she's the easy one.
Let me make a recommendation and see if the council, let Aaron, in the next 7 days, work days, bring, every council member can look at all the expense reports and look at them. And if they're happy with them, then let's go ahead and have them paid. But every council member be able to.
I can put together a spreadsheet. I can put together a spreadsheet of what they've put in.
But show them the documentation, they have the support.
Sure.
So they're happy with it, okay? And then let's get this thing moving forward.
I'm not happy unless we have our full, I'm sorry, but until we have the full reimbursement, that was the deal. That's what we talked about. We need to have that full reimbursement policy in place so that we can cover our hindsight.
Okay, what's the rest?
It's okay with me.
What do you think? Do we go ahead and reimburse now, or do we wait one more month until we have our full policy?
I don't turn anything in, but they don't.
He's not gonna be here anyway.
Well, like he cares. It's easy for me to say I'm not submitting.
Is it up to me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I went your,
well, I thought we were going to put the policy in, but if you've got pending, if in the documentation there, pay it.
Don?
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you have to make a decision. So we've got 1 and 1 over here.
Okay, what's the decision?
Whether or not to go ahead and pay the expenses that have already been submitted before the policy has been implemented. So Larry's fine with that, and Vicky would like to wait until the policy is fully implemented.
Policy, before the policy was done, which it isn't
Mhm.
yet, we're getting reimbursed every month.
Mhm.
So why not continue that reimbursement until the policy is done? Because why would you stop for 3 months?
Okay,
Until
so,
the policy's done?
right, so you're fine with go ahead and okay, so that's,
Jordan?
Yeah, let's clean up what's existing in there, get them paid, and then start with the new policy.
I'm for you. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a 4-to-1 that I will start processing them. And
We don't ever say Vicky is a minor, or, no, not a miser.
we'll,
All right.
but before they go out, I'll run them probably by the ad hoc committee and the admin finance. I'll run them by you three just so that you're comfortable going, okay, this is,
Yeah, so that we cross our.
yeah, so absolutely.
You're not a minority, I'm sorry, that's what I was trying to say. All right, city manager comments?
I did fire.
You were out.
You took a break, so
Oh.
I talked about fire and
Oh.
the calls for the first month they've been back in service, so.
Okay. All right, let's go with this then. I think Green first? No, Aaron Friends, I'm sorry.
That'd be me, thank you. I shouldn't say fortunately, unfortunately, I only had one meeting this night, and that was Vector. And I explained to you earlier that I don't have anything fun to talk about. It was all financial and cleanup work and different things that had no effect on mosquitoes. I was able to, as we all did, enjoy the ribbon cutting ceremony though at the fire station. I was so happy, as the community is, to see that open. It was a great turnout. I didn't get to stay for the cake, but I understand it was very good as well, so. And Jennifer Ward gave my WRCOG presentation, even though I didn't have a meeting at WRCOG, but I'm going to take credit for it. And last but not least, I should say there was a ribbon cutting ceremony for a new business here in Canyon Lake that several of us attended. It's JBL Insurance, and they're a full-service insurance company, so we wish them well. And that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, Larry.
Really not much to report. We had the admin finance and public safety. A lot of good things came out of it, and you have a lot of those documents in your pack.
Okay, Dawn?
I don't really have anything. The RTA meeting and budget meeting I attended was pretty much the same as last month's. Their summer program with the students, the 25% thing is extremely, way past what they expected it to be. It's extremely successful, and they're very happy with it. They're still looking for places, companies, or cities or organizations to give free buses to, and that's about it.
Okay. Dawn, I want to say thank you for sending that email ahead of time for Larry, and I could look at it ahead of, the expenditures, claims and demands, and we were able to give you feedback before the meeting. Thank you very much.
Well, I thought it'd save some time.
Vicki?
Not much. RCA was canceled, so I did not attend that one. An interesting thing happened in the education end of the water, the Lejua meeting. Several city leaders had received letters, pretty much form letters, from students at Temescal Valley High School. There apparently is a science teacher that was using the lakes and bodies of water as a science project and had all kinds of ideas of why we were doing it wrong and what we should be doing instead, and some interesting ideas, but it was clear that there was an agenda from the teacher that was passed on to the students, and it really made some of the board members quite angry. But it's the good news that has come out of this is that we will now be educating also on our end. We will be part of the curriculum so that it won't be coming just from a one-sided look at the world and science. It will come from more a factual base and with much more information. So out of the bad things that happen, having these students manipulated, good things will happen, and we will be able to get some facts out there and teach these kids. They'll be coming to the different lakes, so if I will need volunteers to help them go out onto the lakes on the pontoon boats, that kind of thing. But it actually was a very good thing in the end, how it turned around, so I'm quite pleased with that.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan has already mentioned the Station 60 being open and the celebration reopening, and I agree with you. It went very, very well, and thank you for all attending. Larry Green and I went to the League of California La Quinta meeting on July 15th, July 10th, and boy, other than it's a long drive, it was a very good, interesting meeting. And then I mentioned earlier on July 28th, last Friday, we had to meet the mayors. And they used to do it every other month, but I guess now they're doing it like quarterly. But there's so many information that comes out of that meeting. It's so impressive to be able to hear other mayors are dealing with something very similar to what we're dealing with and get their ideas. So it's very good. So, and I just want to make a final comment. I couldn't be more proud of this city council. They're talking, all the council members are talking to each other. They're keeping each of us informed. We have recently a review with Aaron Balmer. He stepped up to the plate, and he's doing an increasingly incredibly good job. So, and you, Aaron, and your staff are part of that whole team. So we appreciate everything your staff is doing. And so that said, I'm going to make the next meeting is September 6th at 5:30 for closed session and 6:30 for open session. And let's adjourn at, looks like 9 o'clock.
Good job, Aaron.
Yeah.
I was away.
Yeah.
I said, Charlotte, my girlfriend Charlotte.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I mentioned it.